Dear friends, please raise your hands if you're ready to start the discussion. I can see that the people in the first row are not yet ready. I would like to welcome you all here. My name is Artyom Korstenenko. I'm working at the Strelka Institute. And I'm the leader of the project Architect RF. So I'm going to moderate this discussion. It's called the urban planning of happiness. How can we build a city for people? So I would like to give a brief introduction in order to get deeper into the context. So I was trying to think what we mean when we say the urban planning of happiness. What kind of concepts can be given to exemplify and illustrate it? For example, is urban planning of unhappiness positive? And I do recommend to try and test it yourself because it's not that easy, but it does help to understand what you want to get from the discussion. The key thesis is in the second part of the title of this discussion. How can we build a city for people? So we're going to have a conversation with our speakers and we are going to touch upon different issues, not necessarily related to building a city for people, but also how the city can be transformed to make it more comfortable for people that live there. So let me introduce the speakers. I'm going to start with Tatiana Gup, who is the director of General Plan Institute, Moscow. Natalia Kominarskaya, the director of Center of Charity and Social Activism, Blagosfera. Lev Gordon, co-founder of National Initiative Live Cities. And he is the editor of the book Happy City. Kees Donkers, director of QAS Urban Studio in the Netherlands. He used to be a consultant for Eindhoven mayor, and he did a lot to develop the environment. And Floor Ziegert, who is the co-founder of Stadmaker Cooperative, and they will tell us more about the situation in the Netherlands. So let's start. We don't have to go very deep into this, but there's no doubt that the city is the unified, single, very complex organism. And whenever you work with the city, you have to be very careful and when you want to make changes, sometimes you are very ambitious. You have so many goals. You want to make the city friendly and the environment more comfortable. But then it would lead to different consequences. And if something goes wrong, you might face lots of challenges and difficulties. So we're going to start our discussion with large metropolitan cities. Imagine millions of people that are very different, that are so different from each other. And it's not the only problem. You can imagine that they have different moods, they belong to different classes, they have different backgrounds, ages, needs. So it's a dynamically changing environment. And if I draw a table, I had to show lots of indicators that would again demonstrate different changes. So I would like to ask Tatiana to tell us how they develop develop large-scale projects that would cover the whole city, and sometimes these projects run for decades. So how can you develop such projects? What do you rely on? How can you be sure that the results will make them happier? Tatiana, the floor is yours. Good afternoon. I would like to start with my presentation. I have a clicker here. No? Do I not have a clicker? Or I can, for example, ask somebody to help me. Well, the subject that we are discussing today is very big. It's a global subject, and it will be difficult to tackle upon all the issues. I can just outline those things that we deal with as part of a master plan institution. It's part of the Department of Urban Planning. So we develop documentation for city development. So when I was preparing for this discussion, I was thinking how we can affect the city and what happens in the city. I don't speak about happiness and unhappiness. I'm just speaking in general, how we can affect the city. And so you can see different documentation items here and different things that affect the city: social infrastructure, cultural infrastructure, ecology, engineering infrastructure, transport accessibility, education, healthy lifestyle. So all these aspects have to be taken into account and reflected in the main document, because this document is the main document that is developed for 15 or 20 years. So they all have to be brought together in the form of the master plan for any city in Russia. Then we have to describe all the different activities and events, and then break them down into design detailed documentation. Can be buildings, can be pedestrian crossing, a square, a park, or a school. So it's very important to remember that this is not the end of the story. Yes, there are new facilities that appear in the city. They continue to exist. They are being used, and they create a certain field around them. So it's very important to continue monitoring of these facilities. What pluses and minuses, advantages and disadvantages they bring. What can be done to make them more beneficial? And this is part of monitoring of master plan. So what are the objective indicators are there? What kind of tools that we can use to measure? You probably know certain indicators about, for example, the radius of accessibility to the metro station or to the library, to the kindergarten, to the sports facility, or to the school. So those are the things guaranteed by the state, and they're guaranteed to each citizen, and that's why there is a body of documents developed by the government of Moscow, and all this will constitute the average indicator of happiness, and it will be accessible for all, and it will be mandatory as well. Whereas on the other hand, there are things that people like and dislike, people that can use it or not necessarily. Maybe it's a seasonal form of use. Maybe children can go to different clubs. So it's the happiness of being able to make a choice. Yes, and unfortunately, it's not necessarily reflected fully in the urban planning documentation, but it can be taken into account for monitoring purpose, because we should consider how it can be used for further development of the city. All these activities are implemented as part of large city projects. For example, this is the program of urban environment, and we were working together with you, Artyom, and it might be exemplary, because it produced very fast results for the city. When we declared that we are building the city for people, for pedestrians, for people that want to walk in the park, who want to use the bicycles, who want to use in comfortable districts. There is another program focused on the districts in the city underway. So there is a whole chain of programs that also involves infrastructure development. You know how fast we are building metropolitan metro stations, and for example, take Zaryadye Park. It's a quintessence of the opportunities right in the center that it was built. So all these represent different city projects that were based on a master plan. What's important to remember here is that each facility has to be taken into account. So this is the general map. So you can take any kind of facility, socially significant or less significant. It can be an engineering facility, natural facility, or infrastructure facility. It will have a radius of positive effect and negative effect. So why is it so? You know, if you live in the city, you can say that there'll be a metro station within 200 meters from my building. It's great because you can walk there easily, but it will change the environment around. The burden would become bigger. There'll be more transport traffic, there'll be more trading facilities that will appear around. Also, the number of people will increase. So maybe somebody won't like it. And if you see a school that is being built near your building, and then the residents might say, oh, I have small children and I don't like when there's a lot of noise that the teenagers make while playing football. So maybe they are some extraordinary examples, but this is what we see every day. And I can give you another example about the parks. I wanted to show you my next slide.
I can't switch, I think it seems. Okay, so when we speak about this, whether it's good or not, so first of all, it's important whether we need this or not. For example, if you need school or kindergarten, of course, we have to say that it's good if we have a new school or a new kindergarten. But when we start thinking what will bring this to me personally, this is also egoism. Maybe it will be not safe anymore. Maybe this will be some construction. Maybe there will be some services, of course, paid, not paid. Where can I look at this project? And what personally I will get from this? How will I benefit from this? Will it be a piece of happiness for me or not? And this can be distributed to any venue, to any infrastructure, transport, social, nature. Please imagine 5 years ago in the city we had parks, and in these parks we did not have infrastructure, so no food courts, no bicycles, and these parks were for criminals, very dangerous. But when, do you remember, I spoke about, operation. This, object should not be just like a realized object. It should be alive. And here, in this life, we need to consider some individual things which are important for people who live nearby. Now, in the city, we have such mechanisms, with the help of which we can discuss what people want. We have active citizen, and this active citizen wants to know what we'll do in this park. So, for example, he comes to a park and he wants to do yoga, or he wants to go through medical examination. And this is all, this goes, from quite a huge happiness till different levels of realization of this happiness. And this is what I wanted to say. And so this... this is like private participation, and we can also, in this case, cope with some negative consequences which can be in some objects. So we can discuss all this with citizens. And if there is complicity of people and positive, constructive complicity, in this case, there will not be social egoism. If people can look at this a little bit wider, people can move to other cities, to other districts, and if there is a pool of opportunities, large scale, this is very important for the city on the whole. And maybe in this case, if even you have some difficulties for some period of time, maybe it's okay, and we should have a balance between citizens and governments. And now I ask you all to participate in this balance. Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope that then we'll continue also to discuss it, because I personally, I have the question. So there are so many, opinions, and there are so different groups. They have different also opinions. But when these groups meet, they can. It will take time to find common language, like a bicycle man and those who like cars. For this, we have experts who have to evaluate pluses and minuses of this and that party, and they need to find a good decision. Of course, 100% will never be satisfied. One wants to eat spaghetti, and another person wants a salad, for example. And usually, of course, they they have compromises, but still nobody will be satisfied by 100%. But we need still to make a good decision, and only a professional, an expert can do this. If you go to a doctor, you say, I have some illness, but I prefer red tablet, not blue. So the patient says, and this is not right. I think professionals should do this all. And of course, we should listen to our customers, and customers are our citizens, but still citizens are not professionals. Thank you very much. So you now spoke about Moscow experience, and we can hear very nice music, victorious music. I would like to ask Kees Dankers, please tell us about your city and Hohen city, and how did you see the task in your city? How did you make citizens in the city happier, and how did you build a dialogue there? Because I know that the process of development of this dialogue between community, society and the government sometimes is quite difficult. And maybe Kees, you would like to share some information with us. Maybe you can help us in some ways, retrospectively maybe.
I hope so. This first slide shows my passion for what I do. What you see is, it looks like an old painting from a Dutch painter, 300 years old, but it's a picture from nowadays, and it shows the beauty. Okay. This way? Okay. What you see here is a picture from nowadays, not...
Kees, sorry, can I ask you to talk to the microphone, please? So our audience could also listen
Okay.
If
better?
If they prefer to listen in English.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to explain the picture that you see here. It looks like a painting, 300 years old, Dutch painters, but it's still not okay. Still not okay. This way. This way. Wow. Like a DJ. Okay. You have to compete with the music.
Друзья, кто-то из ассистентов площадки может...
Maybe some venue assistants can help us to make our mics louder.
В зале есть люди, которым еще не...
So I hear people in our audience who still can't hear us.
Better? Okay. Head closer. Good. I wanted to explain this picture. It looks like an old painting, 300 years old, Dutch painters, but it's from nowadays. It's like a picture, and it's even used a plastic bag on top of the head of the girl. It shows the beauty of a girl. It shows the beauty of girls, let's say, more in common. But also in a nowadays way, even looking into the future, using plastic bags as a head. So for me, in this picture, you have past, you have nowadays, and you have future. And now I have to switch. No, this one. Something about me. I'm an urban designer from the city of Eindhoven, but I also work on a project called City as a Laboratory with students at the university. You can find me on Facebook. I would like to talk about 5 topics. First of all, the White Village. It's the place where I bought my house 40 years ago. That's where I started my involvement as a citizen. Second part is about Q Cafe, about a sort of a cafe mood to talk about social issues in the city. So a dialogue. Third step is about E+. It shows the combination and the cooperation with university for city department and university. The fourth part is Urban Fest in Izevsk. 4 or 5 years ago, that's where I met Lev Gordon. For me, it looks like Woodstock for urban design. So 2 days in the city hall, 2 days in the field, in nature, with mosquitoes and party tents to discuss actual issues in the cities. Amazing. Last part is about 60 plus and 30 minus, about my generation and the generation of Floor, to live together in one abandoned building. 30 minus, yeah. To create new communities. That's what I mean, like in the past. This is the White Village. I bought my house more than 40 years ago. Row houses, very simple in my city. But it was already built before the war. So I was, let's say, the second generations to live there. My kids were born, the first kids in the neighborhood. But we had to maintain the houses. People started to paint their window frames dark brown. So I decided myself not to paint my house white myself, because then you could have 10 different colors of white. I decided to use my energy to do this as a cooperation, so to do this together, to have one color of white. And we needed at least 100 participants to sign a contract for 12 years, to spend 50 euros a month to do this. And we were successful in doing this. So we were seen as a company, because we had these 100 owners, private owners. So it was a first step, let's say my front door, to organize it myself. And not to paint my house white, but to do this together, cooperation. Second step was, because it was well known in my city, newspapers were writing about it, to start a discussion, not only talk about this neighborhood, the White Village, only 260 row houses, but to do it for whole the city. So we used the theater around the corner, a small theater, to discuss every month on a Monday night the quality of the city. It was called Q Cafe. quality, cure from quality and cafe, to do this in a cafe or a theater, but stop at 10 at night to have a beer. Because if you have a beer, you can talk even more, or wine, white wine. So we decided to do this, and it became also very successful. And one of the first topics we discussed was the fact that the Philips industry, the main industry in my city, left the city. It had to, because they went to lower cost countries. So we had a lot of unemployment in our city. Jobs were lost, people moved away, factories were empty. A depressed city, you can say. It was the beginning of the 90s. We discussed this issue because Philips and city department wanted to demolish these old factories. And we said it shouldn't be done. It should be reused instead of demolished. So we started to discuss this, and because the program was popular, there were also politicians. There were as many necktie people with suits from building companies as T-shirts, let's say, students and architects. So it was a beautiful mix of people. And we discussed this issue in this kind of atmosphere. So full house every time, all the people were there, and it was really the voice of the city, you can say, to talk about quality of the city. And because of this program, we were able to convince not only Philips as the owner of the building, but also the city department to not demolish it. At the time of depression, we got a new mayor, 1993, Rijn Welsje. And he became my hero, because he was the one who was, he reflected on this, what's going on in the city. So he said, I need you as a guy, you have such a big mouth, come and join my department and do this, work on this issue. This white lady, as it was called, as you can see here, the first factory of Philips, 100 years old. He said, it will be your first project in our department. So I was able to work for the city from that moment on, 1993. So from a citizen, I became a professional as an urban designer for the city. And we made these first plans to reuse this white lady and not demolish it. And it also became an iconic building because this school design academy went into this building. And we also had our library, our city library also went into this building. So it became very popular. The only thing we changed was what you can see here in the drawing. In the middle of this building, we built a sort of a living room, a place for people to come and meet and to see results of what students were doing there. The next step was cooperation with the university, because this mayor, he decided to overcome this depression in our city by cooperation. He said we need 3 partners: businessmen, city department and university. And because of this cooperation, it was the key to our revival, you can say, to our second life. And in the year 2000, he said we need some big designers to come to our city for a week to work with talented young people, talented students. And one of these guys was Peter Eisenman, a famous architect from New York. He came to our city and worked with 3 talented students, a poet, a landscape architect and an architect. And I was able to work with them only for this small project, but we were thinking about a new station area, tracking the tracks, but that was not important. It was important that we found out having a university in the city is like gold, having gold, because you have the knowledge of young people, you have the knowledge of bright ideas for the future. Students are the future. And I was able to work from that moment on, because this mayor said you will become the coordinator for the relationship between city department and university. And I was very honored by this role. And so I started the program City as a Lab, City as a Laboratory. And the first moment we had first results, we said we have to present them. And we wanted to do this every week, every year. We have a Dutch Design Week. It was also started in the year 2000 to present design results of young people, this graduation show of the Design Academy. Nowadays it's famous because every year, this yearly moment in October, it is the moment to present bright ideas from young people, even the best ideas. And we use this moment to present also the ideas of these young people in an empty law house next to the city hall, as you can see here. Till this moment there lived 3 students, anti-squatting we called it. It was a dusty atmosphere. They more or less protected the building for squatting, and they could live there for a low price. But we reused it for the first presentation of results of those students, as you can see here. More than 300 people came to see this during the design week. So we found out that having a university, having bright ideas of young people, it gives a lot of energy, also to me. At the end, these students became even my professors, because they tell me about the future. It's not me, it's them. Their future is them. So they showed their future, let's say, to me. Then the almost last step is my first visit to Russia, Moscow Design Act in 2010. To be honest, this is my 52nd visit to Russia. So I have a passion, I have an addiction to Russia. You can notice this. And now Floor will get it too, because it's her first visit. But this is the first visit for me. And Moscow Design Act, a very tiny presentation in Moscow. But this director you see here in the middle, she asked me to take part in this press conference. So, and well, I guess she made me fall in love with Russia. Maybe it's her, but it's also about Russia and Russian people that were presented there. And it was the start for me of my Russian passion, because there was a guy in the audience from Dutch embassy, a Dutch consulate, and he said, you have to come back 3 weeks later for the first Ural Biennial. So I also went to Ural, and now it stops. I don't know, yes. The first Ural Biennial, to have new ideas for, let's say, Yekaterinburg, because the city was comparable. We had only 1 white lady in my city, and in Yekaterinburg you have 100 white ladies. So it's a lot to be done here. I was able to work with students, because I was teaching students in Yekaterinburg and in other cities, even to Vladivostok, and I asked students to come over in summer for summer courses in my city. One of the topics we did was, I call it 60 plus and 30 minus. We talked about it, to live together in new communities. It's like 50 years ago. You can see here Woodstock. It's exactly 50 years ago. I was a student at that time, I became a student. So it formed me more or less. And to have communes at that time, it was new. In Russia you had the kommunalkas, of course, the forced communities. And we decided with Russian students together to create new communities, to live together and take care of each other, share and care. And it made us happy to talk and think about it. So we created this idea to have empty buildings to be reused by different generations to help each other. Like I take care of my grandchildren. I have 2 sons, 2 families. 2 days a week I take care of my grandchildren. So you can help your children with a little bit of care. But so I learned about this, and I myself, I'm preparing this project in my city to use an empty villa for this kind of new communities. To live together, to share, not pay each other, but take care of each other. Have a living room together, 1/3 of the space is common, 2/3 of the space is private. You can live together and help each other. Last slide is about what I've learned from young people. In 2005, I was able to reuse an little empty church, Apostolic Society, for my studio, for students, but also for 4 talented students to live and work there. And the first opening ceremony was a Last Supper. They created it, they invited 8 other apostles, as they call them, 4 apostles, to create this beautiful dinner to show not only the dinner but also themselves, different skills of people, a new kind of education to follow your passion, your skill instead of a profession. So you can see this picture as, for me, as a message to the future in the field of education. I'm retired in 2015, and I decided to start up a company not to earn money but to share my knowledge with young people. I call it CASE, like my first name, but written as Quality in Architecture, Society and Education. Because architecture is about the beauty of people, beauty of architecture. But society is about you, about people. And education is about the key to the future, to work with students as my professors, yeah. So this is my contribution to what we like to discuss today. Спасибо.
Кис, спасибо большое за очень...
Thank you very much, Keith. It's very inspiring. So thank you very much. So what I heard, and I hope that I'm right, that I hope that I'm not mistaken, you call to rely on youth. You call everybody to get connected with young people, to involve young people as much as possible. And even if some people don't have refined skills, some professional career background, maybe he can do something, and then later on they can become happier. So how does this happiness get generated? Sometimes we use it in quotation marks, sometimes without quotation marks. So how does this happiness can be generated?
My experience is that my first students for Berg in 2010 are still related to me. They call me, we Skype, they visit my city. I even was asked for a wedding. One of my first interns, Galina, she got her wedding, and I became more or less her father during this wedding. We had different kind of talks. So I'm pretty much involved in life of young people at this, and it still lingers on. And that's why I call them my professors, because I like to have this continuity of communication, because it gives me the energy. I share my knowledge, I share my life, but what I get back is energy from young people.
Я слышу.
I can hear a lot of things. You speak a lot about trust, because you know you can't just ask a person, oh please be my father or be my godfather, without any trust. And I have a feeling that you are very talented, because you involve great people that can work on a project. Maybe you start with a brainstorm. So it's a very special atmosphere of trust that you create. And I wanted to take a step aside. I met Keith in 2012 in his laboratory in Eindhoven. It was the first time when I met Keith. And I was really impressed when he described the space. He said, you know, we have some people here that come from all over the world. We have some people from Russia, and on Tuesday or Thursday we just get together and work on different projects. All the doors are open, and it's like an invitation to take part, and it's an invitation for everyone. So it's a very special space. It's not isolated. It's a live space where you can actively participate and take an active part in its life. So as a moderator now, I can move to Natalia Kaminarskaya, and she's the director of charity center Blagosfera. So your center is not located downtown, but your site generates a lot of different events and projects and intellectual activity. So maybe you could tell us more about your work. How people come to you, what happens there, and how come people get more satisfied? How do they get these emotions? Thank you, Artyom. Well, I actually never thought that Dynamo metro station is not downtown. I think it's quite centrally located. But you know, I have a lot of questions related to the visits to my company, so maybe it's one of the reasons. And I would like to start with a statement people need the third space or the third site that would be attractive for people, and it's a special place where people want to come after work, but it's not home, so they can do something together. And it's great that Eindhoven had such great experience, and perhaps we could borrow some of it and adopt it here in Moscow. So there is a strong desire in society to move from online to offline. So that's why we have this space, and people are willing to come to our place. So where do people go in the city? Maybe this information is common knowledge, but there are so many different offers and suggestions. If you, for example, had to make a choice what to do today, whether to choose work or attend some event or take part in this forum, there'll be a range of events that you have to analyze and think whether you'll enjoy it or not, whether you'll get some new knowledge or meet new people. And it's so intensive. So sometimes people make ad hoc decisions. They can't explain why they make this or that decision. They have to go somewhere. So this industry plays a lot with your ad hoc decisions and spontaneous desires. And if we take a look at the full range of suggestions, it's quite typical. You can go to the park, you can go to the cinema, you can ride a bicycle or attend a lecture. So it's a typical range of activities that you can choose for yourself. And the infrastructure is also quite typical for this range of choice. Usually this edutainment events take place in the center of the city. Sometimes, you can have only 20 minutes. You just want to have a cup of coffee and have a conversation. So you need this third space. So this is a space where you can go with your suggestion, with your ideas, without any other opinion, or without any ideas imposed on you from the owners of the space. So we were thinking about these new formats and how we can involve citizens in different activities, and that's how we came up with the idea of setting up this Blagosfera Foundation Center. And we do invite you to come and visit us. It's true, it's a special space. It's an independent site. It doesn't belong to the city. It belongs to a non-profit organization, and it's accessible to anyone who wants to run an event there. Of course, we have our own projects, if you are interested in them, so that you could see what other things are possible. And we do it not on our own. We work together with Moscow non-profit organizations. They run their festivals, workshops, master classes, lectures, celebrations, and you can always come to see what it's like. It's such a diversity of activities that you can take part in. And you can also offer your own things. You can deliver your workshop. You can organize a tea party or some other event. We did this after studying a lot of experience that are available all over the world. And we visited different co-working spaces, and we are still in the process of searching. Even though we exist for 3 years already, it's an it's a continuously developing startup. So it all depends on you, on your ideas, your initiative. If something doesn't work, it means you don't need that, probably. And our concept combines a big space for conferences, a co-working space, a media center. You can record a video or run a workshop. You can record your podcast and broadcast it whenever you want. So you can use anything you want. So we are happy to share what we have, and it's can be used both non-profit organizations and city administration. When they identify new KPIs for libraries and cinemas, because they also become new public spaces. Developers can also take it into account because they leave some vacant and empty space in the basement of the building as a public or communal space where people can get together and discuss something. They are not necessarily related to housing and utilities. Maybe they could have some workshop or some master classes. So we are happy to share our experience because we feel that people lack this information, and there are such public spaces. You can look for them and find them and use them as partnership space. You can always go to libraries, maybe to the schools that have some space in the evening, or in some movie theaters. So they are all new initiatives, new points of growth that are available for citizens that can bring them new meaning, that can help people find new friends and make their life more interesting. Thank you very much. That's very inspiring. Natalia, could you give us some examples? You know, it sounds like you can do anything. You can go to your place and then you will respond. Like Keith mentioned, they were talking with friends and then they decided to renovate Philips plant, and skaters came and musicians came and revitalized the atmosphere. I personally talked to the father that created a skate park in Eindhoven at this Philips factory. How come it happened? You know, my father said it's a long way to take you 120 kilometers away, so let's build it here, and that's why we built it. And you know, it's I'm not going to touch upon environmental effect because you don't have to take a car and run such a long distance. So it's great to see such experience, such a special initiative. So could you tell us about some of the activities that you had in Blagosphere? You know, many things happen. For example, some people bring their old clothes to our charity shop, or they leave some books and, for example, they stay for tea when they realize there's a lot of social literature that's available there. And, you know, everybody is willing to say something like they have in Hyde Park. So we said, if you bring 15 people here, we'll give you beautiful space with beautiful staircase, 4.5 meters high, ceilings high. So you can come and share your experience. So the first person who came to give a lecture, it was about traveling without money. And we announced it, so you have to bring 15 friends, and we have to bring some others. So all in all, there were 30 people there because they saw some announcements on social media. And then he came again and said, some people wanted me to repeat this lecture. We don't do it, but we decided to go ahead with that. We had 90 people for the second time. And then he came again. Can I give the lecture in your place again? And it happened. And then he said, thank you very much. It's actually my calling. And I realized it because it's important for me not only to travel, but also to disseminate my knowledge. So you inspired me for that. So this is an example of social experience, of the social lift. And we say that everything is possible. You will find something for you. We have a film club. It's another example. And we show socially significant films. And then we ask some non-profit organization to comment on the problems because they deal with them. So they asked us, how do you disseminate information? You know, on social media, sometimes we put advertisements on Yandex search engine or some other search engines. And the person said, we wanted to create a portal of different events that you can take part in Moscow. And another person stood up and said, we already have it. And so we had a series of events, accelerator events, and they took place in our space, in the Higher School of Economics. She has a pool of partners from the Moscow Business School, so they have a great portal where you can find free events that take place in Moscow. Or if you don't have a company to go somewhere, you can find a person that will go with you. So it's a great example. You know, sometimes people don't know each other and are afraid of making a first step. I also wanted to refer to Keith's example, 60 plus, 30 minus. And this is what we see now in Moscow. They launched this program and it's implemented in Europe on a wide scale. And it's a great thing because it creates an inclusive space. And it's not only about physical accessibility. It's very interesting for people of different age groups. I guess this forum can be a good example of this as well, because it's not always that you see such a mixture of people and such a mixture of age groups. So, for example, Keith relies a lot on young people. What about you? So why do young people come to you? To see how they can travel for free? You know, they're interested in volunteering. For example, we have volunteering Thursdays when different foundations come and describe how people can become volunteers. And young people are very interested in becoming volunteers. They also come for some lectures and workshops that are very original. It can be about waste distribution and waste collection. So it's all about format. You can make it very entertaining, or you can invite very interesting people. But the audience is very mixed, I have to say. Vladimir Posner, for example, a famous Russian journalist, was very popular with young people.
Yes, it's quite interesting. It seems that people come to learn how they can make his life or her life better, happier, and maybe the lives of other people happier. This is not the story what the city can give to me, but what I can do. Yes, it's very important to inspire people that something depends on them as well, and not everything goes somewhere from the top. And also they can be proud of this, that they are doing something very useful, and for them it's important, and this is changes their attitude, of course. And also I have such a feeling, maybe because of the sociological background, that it's possible that in such co-working space where we can meet people you don't know, there is an opportunity to check the fact maybe it will be weird to check the fact of your existence. Maybe it will sound weird, but this existence, your existence, is reflected in others, because you can live, exist, understand that I am here in this world, but then you can understand that people are around you and you communicate with them, and it means that their activities, their words, that you are here and that you are needed. I think this is great, and I think for many people this is critical. So it's like the life of your life approval, not that you are just dreaming about something. And also this is philosophical a little bit, because our next speaker is Lev Gordon, and I would like just a little bit to get closer to his level of thinking. Lev, please tell us this live cities, these initiatives, this great line of projects which you do. How they can make people happier? What is there? Yes, I will speak about this, but first I would like to give the word to Flor, because she came from afar, and then I will continue. Flor, I introduced her in the beginning, and now we'll come back. Flor, so many people call her mom of all improvements of the cities in Holland. And many people maybe know about the city environment, urban environment of Holland cities, Dutch cities, and I know that this person is very active in improvement of this urban environment. I think she will speak about a lot of interesting things.
Thank you very much for this beautiful introduction. So I'm a mama, mama of the city makers of the Netherlands, and today I feel very much I'm very honored to be here to meet you all. I'm very happy that Kees and Lev invited me, and my colleague Teun, who is sitting in the front. Actually, I would love to talk with you, everybody, personally, but I only have 10 minutes. But that's actually what I always do. I walk through the streets in the Netherlands. Every day I'm in another city, and I meet people. And I talk with them very personally, so it feels a bit strange to sit here and look at you. But perhaps we can talk later. So what I do, I'm a city maker. Do you know what a city maker is? Let me see. Yeah, you know what it is. A city maker is, for me, the person who stands up in the society and starts to organize their own environment. They say, the place where I live, like Kees did, can be better, more cleaner, more people can be more connected. And they just start their own projects in their areas. And sometimes I say they are the civil servants of the society. So they are working on themes that the government is also working on loneliness, on youth, on poorness. And in the Netherlands, there are many, many city makers, and they're coming more and more every day. I don't know, I just arrived in Moscow, so I'm very curious to meet the city makers of Moscow, but I'm sure there are also many, many here. And what we do is we always start with walking through the streets and talking with people, because I really believe if you just listen to people and you listen what is driven them, what their talents are. Every day I meet people and I think you are a city maker, because it's a person that really is very working very hard on his own environment, but he doesn't know. So we are telling people you are a city maker. And we connect all these people in the Netherlands. We have a City Makers online platform. We have a City Makers Corporation. And what we do, because it always starts with listening, but you have to do something, of course, to connect the people. So I found out you need three things. You need a place, you need a theme, and you need a connector, a bridge builder. The place you need, you heard it in the stories already, can be anything. It can be a park, it can be a square, it can be a street, an empty building. But you need to have a place to connect people, to make you have to see what the people can do. You have to show their talents, and you have to tell to the people, come to this place, and I can connect you to other people. The theme is very important, because if you ask people to have an idea for your neighborhoods, they don't always know what to say. They say, let's organize a party, or let's organize a barbecue. And then I say, no, we can organize something more creative together. Do you like music? And I get many, many stories of people that like music. And then we connect people on music. And I'm going to show you a bit more about the way of working, how we form communities, by showing you the slides. I only have 10 minutes, Kees? So or 11. So you tell me when the time is over, because I can talk for ages. I live in Amsterdam.
Если хотите, я могу просто задавать.
If I want, I can just ask maybe clarifying questions if you want. Or maybe let's speak about happiness. So people come, discuss what music they like. They want to make a party, for example. Yes, and who became happy in this case?
Of course, it's all about happiness. You will see in the pictures. It started in Amsterdam North, the projects where I was the initiator of. Do you know Amsterdam? No, Amsterdam has a north part at the other side of the A, we call the water. And it was the part of Amsterdam where you shouldn't live. It was the most poor area of Amsterdam. And of course, creative people like that kind of places, because there are a lot of possibilities still, and there were empty buildings. And I was a creative working in Amsterdam Center, and I thought I moved to Amsterdam North because that's the place to be. And I ended up in a park. It's called the Noorder Park. It's in the center of Amsterdam North. And this park was going to, there was a project developer working on the project, on the park. A landscape architect made a new plan for the park. A very, very expensive project. But this project developer, he knew that a park only would be lively if you have program there, if you have connectors, people that can program. So he said to me, Floor, just start something there. It doesn't matter what you do, but just start something. And I found this fantastic little building, a pavilion, for €1. And I arranged that it was moved to Amsterdam North, to the park. And then suddenly I had a stage, and I was working in the music world, so I thought I can organize concerts for the people in Amsterdam North. I was sure they were going to like it. But something else happened. There were 4 neighborhoods around me where people were living that were very poor. They had a lot of problems, and they were not waiting for a stage with classical music. You can imagine, huh? So what happened? People were angry at me. They said, we don't need this building. We think it's ugly. We don't like classical music. And that was the moment that I thought, I can do 2 things now. I can organize concert there and just do what I like, or I can start listening to these people. And I started to listen and listen and listen, and I found out that every person in this park had an idea, had a talent, had, like Teun always says, a sense of relevance. And that was the moment that I thought, okay, then I can connect you to all these fantastic artists in Amsterdam North. And we started all kinds of projects where everybody could do something in the project with their talents. So there were people that were mad that the trees were cut, and we invited artists to make beautiful art with them, so they could make, instead of being angry, they could make beautiful things of the trees. The boat people who were living there, they brought the public to the other side of the canal. Of course, there were a lot of young people. They were bothering me all the time, and I said, "Let's make your own bench to sit on with an artist." well, all kinds of projects we did in this little beautiful pavilion, and it was like the most ideal world, because everybody was feeling that he or she was heard, was seen, and had a role. Even our fantastic alcoholic people, they were there every day.
Разрешите мне уточнить?
Yeah.
Can I clarify here something? I would like to. I don't. So do I get you right that you are speaking about some interaction, complicity, and the life like a holiday for people in such space, and also you speak about some kind of transformation. And as Tatiana said in the beginning, that some pavilions appeared. So this was like not some accompanying, activities, but these activities were on their own in this space, but infrastructure was the same. Is it like this, or did you change infrastructure, or you did not change infrastructure?
Yes, okay, I understand the question, I think. I think two things happened. This is, of course, what we call a bottom-up project. I think you would call it like that. At the other hand, we were working with the government and all kind of partners in Amsterdam North together. So I think this project is the beginning of a new way of building cities, because the project developer worked on the park just in very slow. You have the very long 20 years planning of the park, but in the meanwhile we were connecting people, and we were working with the government every day just to be part of the projects too. I don't know if that's happening already in Moscow, but our civil servants, we call them city makers too. And we try to work with them very equally on subjects like poorness or the people that have no work. We try to set up all kind of projects.
А вот тут позвольте снова перебить.
Again, I would like to interrupt you. Sorry that I always interrupt you. So I cannot understand this to the end. So the city maker, what is it? Is it like some official work, or is it like a status which you invent yourself? For example, you can say about yourself in Russia, for example, I'm an activist. I do everything, and so this is like my opinion, but it's not official, activist. But what about a city maker in Amsterdam? Does this person get a salary? What is it? Or is it just a hobby? What is a city maker?
Very good question. Yeah, it's about Teun always says it is the person with a certain attitude. So it can be a person in the system world, but also in the society. The people in the society, I always say, are city makers when they work on this every day, and they have also made they have their salary out of this work. So it are the professional people that are working on society themes. Of course, there are many people that do this in the evenings beside their work, but then I don't call them city makers. Is that clear? And then, of course, you are interested, how do they get the money? Well, in the meanwhile, we get all kinds of questions out of the country, from the government, from even the police, the firemen, all kinds of systems that want to learn to work with society again. And the strange thing that the people that are asking us the City Makers Corporation, are the systems that were started as a company or well, with the goal to help the society, but they lost the connection. Do you recognize that? If a system becomes very big, this happens. Can I go on, or do you have more questions?
То есть тайна, покрытая мраком.
The roots go down to the history about city makers, so about this taking care about the city in Holland also.
Sorry?
So we can say that this is a part, city makers are a part of our identity. You care about city, but so complicity and participation in your city life, it's okay, it's good, it's normal. Is it right for everybody in Holland?
I don't think everybody can be a city maker. Well, of course, everybody can be a city maker because everybody has the talent to do something for their own neighborhood. But the city makers mostly have the qualities that they can connect very well. They can listen very well without judgment. This is, of course, very important, that you can talk with the minister and the people in the park and everything between that. So when I walk through a city, I will show you how we do this. Oh, sorry. Maybe this is important to show you that what we found out that when we start a community anywhere in the Netherlands, we always start with these people, connecting these people. So we always have people from the government or from project developers or any people that are in a system with the city makers and creative people. And that's what Kees also understands very well. Creative people can make up concepts where everybody can be part of, and that makes it an inclusive community. So the creative people, they think of projects where everybody can be part of. The city makers have their specialism, and they are very well in connecting people. And the system makes it more, if they are from the first day part of the project, they will always help with money or with, of course, buildings, all the system things you need. So what we say in the space between the system, we build communities where system and society are working equally on themes and places. And we make it very small, because if you make it big, it starts to become a system again. So we make small commons, we call it, in the space between. And this is happening everywhere in the Netherlands now. This is really, it's not bottom up and top down anymore. It's in the middle. We are working together. It sounds like a idealistic world, and of course it doesn't always work well, and we all have a lot of struggles and people that don't understand, but we are having so much success that we are opening eyes every day. People start to understand that this is the best way to build the city.
That's why you are the mother of this movement. And that's why you are the mother of this movement.
Well, I'm called the mother of the movement because I meet city makers every day with Teun together. And so our network is huge, and we start to understand if we connect all these people, we are actually in government ourselves. We can organize the world with the system people together, of course, but it's a totally other world you are building, because even the project developers are asking us to be part of a new neighborhoods that are built now in the Netherlands. They start to ask us as city makers to be part of the new city. And then what happens? We are connected with all these people living in the city. We are asking how do you want to live in this city? What do you need to have a happy life? How to connect? And then the architects are drawing what we hear in the society, and you get totally different cities, of course. In every neighborhood, there are places now starting. They are building places where people can connect. There are more parks. There are more creative people, we call it the broedplaatsen, the places where creative people can live, because we already know that if you have creative people in the neighborhood, it's more lively, you have program. So I keep telling the developers that they have to, if they build new cities, they have to have places for the creative people. Well, I have to stop, eh? Yeah.
Скажите, Флор.
Oh, sorry.
Никаких проблем.
No problem. I just wanted to clarify one thing before we move on. Yeah, you mentioned that you also build new cities, but let's get back to old cities, because you do improve the environment. You mentioned the former industrial spaces in Amsterdam. You transformed, those areas. So I asked this question earlier to Tatiana, and now I'm going to ask it. And now I'm going to ask this question to you. Have you ever had this experience when different communities wanted different things?
Идея.
And maybe they had their own ideas, they wanted to defend their ideas, so you realize that it would take a long time, so you couldn't be very positive about this. I know that when you have to mediate the opposition, the conflict, so you have to establish a dialogue, and this is a big challenge for city makers. Perhaps you could share some practices like that when you had to resolve a conflict.
We have conflicts all the time, of course. When you work with all different people, you have many belongings and voices. And maybe that's why it's nice to end with my little bench. It's called the dwarszitter. It all starts with listening. Every day I find out when I start listening to people, without judgment, you just listen. So on the bench, it's called, I just go there, it's called in Dutch the dwarszitter. It means that you can you can put it cross against something that is from the same height. And you ask the people in the street, or when you have a project with many different voices, people with different belongings, we put them on the bench and we start asking, what is bothering you? Because in the Netherlands, dwarszitter means what is bothering you. So you just ask these questions, you listen and listen and listen, and you just let people say what is bothering them for 10 minutes. And you keep your mouth shut and you just listen. Then you find out under the angriness and the mostly fear, we recognize each other. Eh? There's always a point that you say, oh, of course I understand you. And then the next question on the bench is, what are you going to do about it yourself? And then the people stop with being angry, and they suddenly are starting to think of solutions. And every person can make a solution, also in a conflict. And the last question is a very funny one, but you will understand because you saw my Noorderparkkamer. We always end with the question, what is your hobby? And when you ask people what is driven him or her, then you will can connect people. Everybody that is talking about something that is he or she is really passionate about, you can connect people on passions. So in conflicts, we always end with the question, what is your hobby? And the problem is solved mostly. No, it's not true. But I think, is this the answer you want to hear? It's all about listening and try to find the points where we all understand each other.
Очень здорово.
It sounds great as a practice. It's a good exercise for everyone, and everybody can do this, either with yourself, with friends or colleagues, because it can be really helpful to organize your own thoughts and ideas, to structure them, and to establish dialogue. Thank you very much. It's been very inspiring, and I would like to wish all the success in your work. So this was about different cities in the Netherlands. Now let's move back to Russia. Lev, can you tell us about happiness? The happiness in Russian cities. Does it work in Russia? Because there are different opinions about it, or maybe there's a long way for us to get there. I guess there are only 7 minutes. Can I ask you to stand up? Please put aside all your papers, your devices. Please move your hands and arms. Do you know Vyacheslav Glazechev? If you ever heard about him, please raise your hands. He is a famous urban planner. And another famous architect used to say that, you know, the cities are not about infrastructure and roads. It's about us, about people and our interaction. Let's show our guests from the Netherlands how we can communicate. You can move around this room and shake the hand with anybody. You can hug a person. You have 57 seconds left. Please do what your heart tells you to do. Please try to make connections with each other. So 55 seconds left. Ten seconds left. Shake one more hand. Exchange your business cards. And now I would like to ask you to get back to the space. So we have 4 minutes left, and I would like to share 4 points. Can you hear me well? So, we are speaking about the city for people. We are talking about urban planning of happiness. So tomorrow we are going to start the Forum of Life Cities. You can check it on the website. It's free. Please come and join us. And like our colleague said, we perceive the city as a complex living organism. So the health of the city depends on the relationships between different parts, how comprehensive and it is, whether it has integrity. So let's think about the cells of the city, if the whole city is the living organism, the living body. So the cells are all the people, citizens and residents. And if we can establish the relationships, it means that the city functions well. Blagosfera is a great example. It's true, it's very far from the center. For those people that live downtown, but you know, when I come to your center, I understand that that's the real downtown, because it's a space where you can feel happy. So this is what you can do yourself. The architect here create spaces where people can establish connections. Why are you smiling? Because I'm interested in what you say. And I'm smiling because I met such great people that share my interests. So my second idea, David Vaga is going to talk about it tomorrow. It's going to be about transformation of urban environment, and it's much more effective if people start with themselves and start working on themselves. So the city for people is not only about infrastructure, roads and parks, but it's about social city as a social phenomenon and relationships between people. Yuri Eister was with us, and he is the creator of the environment of distributed trust. So when you establish relationships, when you begin to collaborate with each other, you create the city of the future, and you can make an impact yourself. You don't need any funding for that. So when Floor was talking about city makers, this is a Dutch phenomenon. So it's a special place where people create the environment for their life. So it doesn't matter what role you have in the city. You can be an entrepreneur or a mayor of the city. You are a creator of the city. So you can be a crucial part in communication or infrastructure or technological processes, communication processes. Now, my third point is about the development of the city. It starts with care. First of all, it's a care. You should care about yourself. Before we learn how to care about ourselves to a full extent, understand our needs, realize what's important for you, fill yourself with energy, identify the obstacles that you have on the way to harmony. So this is why it's important. So you care about yourself, and then you should care about the close ones, because this will lay a great foundation for your care about others, your community and the city. And so we start with care for ourselves, then about the closed circles, the community, and then together with other people we can already think about larger scale. We can think about the city and the planet overall. I have given a book to Natalia. It's called A Happy City. It costs 400 or 500 rubles. You can find it on Ozone website. So this Canadian author was traveling in different countries, and he is actually going to talk tomorrow at the forum. So he studies the phenomenon of urban planning and how it affects our subjective state of mind. For example, there are different indices, Happy Planet Index, that measure happiness. So 140 countries took part in the survey. What do you think how Russia was rated? It was number 116. So we have a lot of experts here, and we had a meeting in December, so we studied the nature of happiness. We identified 3 keys to happiness. Maybe I won't have enough time to share with you about those keys. But anyway, it's very important to know those keys. Yuri, Natalia. So each of us can use these keys because they give answers to very important questions. It's great, isn't it? So we decided to start a project, Happy Cities, and because we want to move our society from the place down the list to the place on the top of the list, in the top 10. Of course, it's a large-scale project. We won't be able to implement it if we are separate. And I do encourage you to become part of this process. You should start with yourself, but if we collaborate, we'll be able to transform our country and to make changes, real changes. So 3 keys of happiness. Do I have a minute? I probably will have to say tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, the Forum of Life Cities. It has free participation, so we'll talk about it there. Thank you, Lev. Your talks are memorable, and scripts never work in your case. So Lev already announced this forum, and I can say that tonight at 6 p.m. Keith is going to give a talk, and he will give a lot of details about his work and about his projects. He'll focus on different aspects of the concepts and describe how they try to make their city happier. And I liked what Lev said, that you should start with yourself if you want to make a city a happy place. I love running and I love marathons, so I can refer to Harvard research. Harvard University published a paper, and 1,200,000 people took part in that research, and they said those people that do sport feel much happier, irrespective of their income. Irrespective of their educational background, and so sports can make us a bit happier. And I guess we have a lot more to achieve. There's a long way for us to go, and I would like to thank all the speakers, and I would like to thank you for participation.